They thought you'd always be waiting, but then one day you weren't there anymore. For the longest time, my friends, they believed you were theirs to toy with. They believed no matter how many times they ignored your messages, no matter how often they turned their back on you, you would still be standing at the same spot, waiting like a loyal shadow. You gave them your time, your energy, your patience. You kept showing up even when they didn't. And because of that, they convinced themselves you would never leave. But life has a way of flipping the script, and the day you decided to walk away in silence, that was the day their confidence cracked. That was the day their illusion of power began to collapse. Think of it like a stage play. For a long time, they were the star, and you were the supporting role, clapping, cheering, waiting for their performance. But then the lights went out, the audience left, and when they turned back to look for you, your seat was empty. Suddenly, the spotlight felt cold. Suddenly, the applause they counted on wasn't there. That's the power of moving on. It doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need a speech. It doesn't need revenge. It just leaves quietly, and in that quiet, the loudest echo begins to ring in their mind. They lost someone they thought they could keep forever. Folks, let me break the biggest lie right now. The lie they wanted you to believe is that being ignored means you were worthless. That rejection meant you weren't good enough, that their silence was proof of your failure. But here's the truth, calm and clear. Rejection doesn't mean you're not valuable. It only means they were blind. Betrayal doesn't mean you were weak. It only means they were too fragile to hold something real. And moving on, that's not defeat. It's the sharpest form of victory. As Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Your silence, your calm, your refusal to beg becomes the most powerful answer they'll ever face. Let me paint another picture. Imagine a flame burning bright. For a long time, you were the oxygen feeding that fire. Every message, every attempt, every piece of attention kept their ego alive. But then you stopped. You withdrew. You took the oxygen away. And now, my friends, that once mighty flame starts to flicker. Their ego gasps, their pride trembles, and in the quiet of night, when the world sleeps, they feel it. The collapse of the fire they thought would never die. That's what happens when you move on. They expected tears. They expected chaos. Instead, they met silence. And silence, my friends, is the most dangerous sound in the world. Now I know what you've been asking yourself. But what if they never come back? What if they never miss me? My friends, human nature is wired for regret. People always underestimate what they think they can take for granted. They laugh when you stay, but they cry when you leave. They ignore your worth when it's in front of them, but they obsess over it once it's gone. That's the paradox of the human mind. It only learns value through absence. And your absence is now their teacher. They will sit in rooms where your laughter once echoed and feel the silence eat at them. They will scroll past memories and realize no new love can erase the old. They will taste the bitter truth that they lost someone who will never be found again. Moving on is not just freedom, it's the moment their ego collapses. It's the turning point where you stop begging and start building. It's the proof that your worth was never tied to their recognition, but to your ability to rise without them. And when you rise, when you glow quietly without needing their applause, that's when they'll look back in disbelief. They'll regret, they'll wonder, they'll circle back. But here's the beauty. You won't need them anymore. You'll already be standing strong. So pause with me for a moment, my friends. Take one slow breath and really let this truth settle into your bones. Their rejection never defined you. It only revealed their blindness. Their silence never owned you. It only freed your voice. Their betrayal never broke you. It only proved you were built to bend, but never shatter. This is not weakness. This is rebirth. And if you can feel that truth rising in you right now, don't just keep it in your head. Speak it. Claim it. Write it. Say it out loud with me. I rise stronger, not tomorrow, not someday, right now. And don't stop at saying it. Go to the comments and carve it into stone. Prove to yourself you mean it. Declare it where the world can see, where your own eyes can see it again and again. Because when you write those words, you're not just leaving a comment, you're leaving behind the old version of yourself that begged, that chased, that doubted. And if this message stirred your chest, if it cracked something open inside you, I want you to show it. Smash that like button so I know you felt this in your soul. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, because what we're building here isn't just advice. It's an army of people who refuse to be broken again. Stay with me, because your journey isn't about proving anything to them. It's about becoming untouchable. And my friends, that's exactly what you're doing right now, rising stronger, calmer, and unstoppable. Number 1. The day they notice the silence feels different. There comes a moment, my friends, when the very silence they once mocked begins to sting them. In the beginning, they thought ignoring you was power. They thought not replying to your message, leaving you hanging for hours, even days, was proof that they were in control. They smiled when they saw your name light up their screen and then looked away, letting it sit there as if your presence meant nothing. They believed they had you wrapped around their little finger, waiting, hoping, always reaching. But then something shifted. One day, the text didn't come, the call didn't ring, the message never arrived. That, my friends, is the day the silence changes shape. At first, they thought it was peace, but soon it becomes chaos. Let me paint it clearer for you. Imagine someone who lives by the ocean. Every day they hear the waves, the crashing water, the steady rhythm of nature filling the air. They don't notice it after a while, because it's always there. It becomes background noise, taken for granted. But imagine if, one morning, they woke up and the ocean was gone. No waves, no sound, no rhythm, just silence. At first they'd think, this is calm. But give it time, and the absence becomes unbearable. They'd start to miss the very thing they once ignored, because only in its disappearance do they realize what it meant. That is what your silence does to them. You were the ocean in their life. You were the steady presence, the rhythm they counted on, even if they pretended not to. And now that you've pulled back, the silence feels like an earthquake. I know the question burning in your mind right now, but if they ignored me, why would my silence matter? Why would they even notice? Let me give you the truth. The human mind is addicted to patterns. People may claim they don't need you, but once they've grown used to your presence, your energy, your messages, your loyalty, they become dependent on it in ways they can't admit. When you break that pattern, when the steady stream of attention dries up, their mind begins to itch. They check their phone, they scroll their messages, they linger on your name, and they wonder, why haven't they reached out? Did something change? Have they moved on? What once was ignored now becomes a haunting absence. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That's exactly what's happening here. On the surface, they may pretend not to care, but underneath, their unconscious is screaming. They are forced to confront something they never wanted to see. The reality of losing you. Your silence becomes the mirror they cannot escape, dragging all their buried insecurities into the light. They thought ignoring you gave them power, but now your withdrawal leaves them powerless. They cannot control what they cannot predict. And when they cannot predict you, they cannot stop thinking about you. But here's where it gets difficult, my friends, because I know the urge that rises in your chest. When you feel ignored, when you feel forgotten, the temptation is to break the silence. You want to send another message, one more call, just to remind them you're still there. Your heart whispers, if I reach out again, maybe this time they'll answer. Maybe this time they'll see my worth. And every nerve in your body fights against stillness. That's what makes this so hard. You think your silence is weakness, but in truth, it is the strongest move you can ever make. As Epictetus taught, we cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond. You cannot control if they ignore you, but you can control your reaction. And your silence, calm and steady, is the reaction that shakes them to their core. Think of it like this. A flame cannot survive without oxygen. The more oxygen you give, the brighter it burns. That was their ego every time you reached out. Every ignored message only grew their pride, because they knew you'd send another. But the day you stop, the fire loses its air. At first it flickers, then it sputters, and then, slowly, it begins to die. Your silence is the withdrawal of oxygen. It starves the flame they thought would never go out. They might pretend to laugh, to smirk, to act like it doesn't bother them, but trust me, when the night falls quiet and they're left alone with their thoughts, the silence you gave them roars louder than any words you could have spoken. And yet, the beauty of this lies in your control. The moment you stop reacting, you become untouchable. You're no longer chained to their replies, no longer dependent on their attention, no longer begging for scraps of validation. You step into the calm that Stoicism teaches us to embrace, the calm that says, I will not be shaken by what I cannot control. And in that calm, something incredible happens. They begin to shake. They begin to question. They begin to regret. Let me ask you this, my friends. Who truly holds the power? The one who is restless, refreshing their phone, haunted by the silence, or the one who sits in dignity, refusing to break it? The truth is obvious. You win not by shouting louder, not by sending one more text, but by standing still in silence, unbroken, unbothered, unchained. Marcus Aurelius said it best. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Your silence is not a void. It is strength embodied. It is your shield, your weapon, your victory. So the next time your mind tempts you to send that one more message, pause, take a breath. Remember this, the silence that feels unbearable to you in the moment will soon become unbearable to them. It will echo in their mind. It will haunt their nights. It will gnaw at their pride. You do not need to chase, because silence chases them for you. It follows them everywhere, like a shadow they can't outrun. And when that moment comes, when they notice your silence feels different, when the absence they once mocked becomes the ghost they can't shake, you will know you've already won. You've already taken back your power, and they are left stumbling in the emptiness they created. So let's seal this truth together, folks. Say it with me right now. My silence is strength. Don't just whisper it in your head. Write it in the comments right now. Make it real. Carve it into your own story. And if this spoke to you, if it struck something deep inside, press that like button so I know you felt it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and stay with me, because this journey isn't about making them hear your words. It's about letting your silence speak louder than anything they've ever known. And my friends, your silence is about to echo forever. Number 2. The ego collapse of being replaced in their mind. They thought you'd stay in orbit forever, circling around them like the moon that never leaves the night sky. They counted on your attention, your affection, your loyalty always being within reach. They believed you'd remain fixed, like a planet tethered by their gravity. But then one day, you weren't in orbit anymore. One day, you shifted, you moved, you rose higher, and suddenly you became the star of another sky, shining where they could no longer touch you. That's the moment their ego begins to collapse, because nothing cuts deeper than realizing the person they dismissed is no longer theirs to take for granted. My friends, let me give you the truth. Nothing terrifies the human ego more than the idea of being replaced. You see, rejection hurts, yes, but replacement, it hits like thunder. It shakes the ground beneath them. Attachment theory teaches us that the deepest human panic is not simply being left, but being left behind for someone else. It awakens the primal fear of being forgotten, of being less than, of not being enough. When you move on and put your energy somewhere else, whether in a new love, a new purpose, or simply yourself, you activate that fear in them. And suddenly, the very person who once ignored your presence is now terrified of your absence. Picture it like this. They scroll through their phone late at night, out of habit, looking for you. They check your profile, expecting to see you waiting in the same spot, expecting to find hints of sadness, loneliness, or longing. But instead, they find nothing. Or worse for them, they find you shining brighter, smiling, living, posting, moving forward. That's when the panic sets in. Their mind whispers questions they can't silence. Have they replaced me? Who are they with? Do they laugh with someone else now, the way they once laughed with me? Did I matter at all? The ego can handle many things, but the thought of being swapped out, being erased, is unbearable. And here's the irony, folks. They didn't fear losing you when they thought you were still waiting. They didn't respect your worth when they thought you'd always be in orbit. But the moment you shifted your gravity, the moment you became untouchable in a new sky, they started to feel the weight of what they lost. That's how fragile the human ego is. It thrives on control. And the second you step out of their control, the entire illusion shatters. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." That irritation they now feel when they see you moving on, when they imagine you being cherished by someone else, is really their own reflection staring back at them. It's the guilt of knowing they didn't value you when they had the chance. It's the fear of realizing they are not as irreplaceable as they once believed. Your moving on forces them to confront the truth. They lost something that cannot be replicated. I know it's hard, my friends. I know in your quiet moments, the doubt creeps in. You wonder, if I move on, will they even notice? Will they even care? Won't it just prove they've forgotten me completely? But let me tell you, human beings do not forget the ones who gave them genuine love. They might bury it under distractions, cover it with bravado, pretend they're unaffected. But the moment they see you no longer waiting, the moment they realize your orbit has broken, their chest tightens, their ego fractures. They start to obsess, not because you begged for their attention, but because you withdrew it. And nothing haunts the ego more than knowing it has been replaced in someone's story. Think of a stage, my friends. For so long, they thought you were their audience, clapping for them, watching their performance. They felt secure in that role. But one day, you left the theater. You didn't clap, you didn't linger, you didn't even announce your exit. You simply walked out and found another show worth your time. Now imagine them returning to the stage, looking out into the crowd, expecting to see your face, and realizing it's gone. The seats are full, yes, but you're no longer there. That is the collapse of their ego. They thought they had the power, but the truth is, you were the one giving them the stage in the first place. Without you, the applause dies. And here's where the Stoic lesson lives. Epictetus taught, "No man is free who is not master of himself." When you master yourself enough to move on, to shift your energy into new places, you're not just walking away, you're reclaiming your freedom. And in that freedom, they feel the chains tighten on their own ego. They are enslaved by their regret, haunted by their imagination, trapped by their own fear of being replaced. You, on the other hand, are free. So let me remind you, folks, moving on is not betrayal of yourself. It's the highest act of self-respect. It's the proof that you are not bound to someone else's blindness. You are not chained to their ego. You are not defined by the role they once assigned you. You are the star that shines in a new sky, brighter than ever before, beyond their reach. Take this truth into your heart right now and say it with me. I cannot be replaced. Write those words in the comments. Declare them, because the moment you claim it, you live it. And if this stirred something in you, if you felt the fire of recognition in your chest, press that like button so I know you're with me. Subscribe if you haven't already, and stay with me, because this journey isn't about teaching them your worth. It's about reminding yourself that you were irreplaceable all along. Number 3, the memory loop they can't escape. My friends, let me take you inside the mind of the one who thought they could so easily erase you. At first, they told themselves they were free. They thought by ignoring you, by leaving you, by turning cold, that the memories of you would fade away like chalk on a sidewalk after the rain. But memory doesn't work that way. Human beings are not built to simply delete what mattered to them, even if they pretend it didn't. And sooner or later, they find themselves caught in a loop they can't escape. It starts with something small. Maybe it's an old song playing in the background at a cafe, a song you both once laughed to, a song you once sang in the car together, and suddenly their chest tightens. Or maybe they're walking down a street, the same one they walked with you years ago, and the echo of your laughter comes back. These moments seem random, but they are not. The mind is wired to link experiences with people, and once those connections are made, they cannot be undone. That's why they keep finding you in unexpected places, because you are stitched into the fabric of their life, and pulling you out is impossible. The psychologists call it the Zeigarnik effect, the tendency of the human mind to obsess over unfinished stories, and that's exactly what your silence has left them with. An unfinished story. They were used to you chasing, to you explaining, to you filling in every blank. But when you stopped, you left them with unanswered questions, and unanswered questions echo louder than anything else. They thought silence would give them closure. But silence is not closure. It is the loudest reminder that something is incomplete. And the human brain cannot let go of incompleteness. So they replay the old conversations in their head. They hear your voice in memory. They scroll through old messages they once ignored, searching for meaning they didn't care to notice before. They find themselves asking, did they love me more than I realized? Did I make a mistake? Were they the one thing I'll never get back? And each time they circle back to those questions, the loop tightens. They thought silence would be peace, but instead it became a prison. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine a book left half read. You put it down, thinking you're done, thinking you can move on. But days later, weeks later, something inside you itches. You keep wondering how the story ended, what happened to the characters, what the final twist was. That is the loop they're trapped in with you. You were the book they thought they could discard, but now the unfinished ending haunts them. Every time they try to distract themselves, the question lingers in the back of their mind. What if I lost the best chapter of my life? And here's the irony, folks. While they once ignored your messages, now they long for them. While they once dismissed your presence, now they look for it everywhere. While they once thought you were replaceable, now every memory proves them wrong. Because silence doesn't erase memories, it amplifies them. When you stop showing up, their mind fills in the blanks with what once was, and the more they try to push it away, the stronger it returns. Jung said, "What you resist not only persists, but grows in size." And that's exactly what happens here. The more they resist remembering you, the more the memories consume them. But here's where the Stoic wisdom grounds you. Marcus Aurelius taught us that you have power over your mind, not outside events. You don't need to chase them, you don't need to remind them, you don't need to keep the story alive. Their own mind will do the work for you. Because regret is self-sustaining. It loops, it circles, it repeats, and while they are trapped in their memories, you are free to build new ones. You are free to write new chapters while they remain stuck, rereading the old. So the next time you doubt yourself, the next time you wonder if they've forgotten, remember this. People never forget those who gave them genuine love. They never escape the memories tied to the places, the sounds, the words you once shared. You're not erased, you're etched. And while they replay the past in a loop, they can't escape. You stand in the present, stronger, wiser, free. Let's seal this truth together right now, my friends. Say it with me. I live free, they replay me. Write it in the comments. Don't just whisper it. Declare it. And if this opened your eyes, if it gave you strength, press that like button so I know you're with me. Subscribe if you haven't already, and stay close, because this journey isn't about being trapped in their loop. It's about breaking free and stepping into a story where you are the star, and they are only the shadow chasing after what they lost. Number 4, the mirror of regret. There comes a night, my friends, when the weight of silence becomes too heavy even for the one who once ignored you. Picture it clearly. They're lying in bed, phone glowing faintly in their hand. The world is quiet. Distractions have faded. And for the first time in a long while, they feel the tug of emptiness where your presence used to be. Their thumb hovers over your name. They type a few words. "Hey, how are you?" But before hitting send, they freeze. The message lingers, unsent, their chest tightening as the thought crashes over them. What if it's too late? What if I ruined the only thing that mattered? They lock their phone, place it down, and roll over. But the regret doesn't leave. It stays with them, whispering louder than your silence ever did. That moment, folks, is the mirror of regret, because regret doesn't just come when someone loses you. It comes when they finally recognize what they failed to value. Psychology shows us that human beings don't regret rejection itself. They don't regret the breakups, the choices, the arguments. What they regret most is the failure to see someone's worth while they had the chance. It's the same reason people look back years later and think, if only I had appreciated them then, if only I had realized sooner what I had in front of me. That's the sting they feel when their phone stays silent in their hand. They remember all the times you reached out, all the chances they had to choose you, and the harsh truth that they wasted every one of them. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone holding a diamond but mistaking it for glass. They toss it aside carelessly, chasing after shiny stones instead. Later, when the sun hits that diamond from another angle, they finally see the brilliance. but it's no longer in their hands. That's what happens when they remember you in the stillness of the night. They realize you were rare and they treated you like common. And in that realization, regret builds like a shadow they can't outrun. But here's where the Stoic wisdom steps in. Their regret, no matter how heavy, is not your burden to carry. It is not your responsibility to soothe the ache they now feel. That burden belongs to them. That shadow follows them. Epictetus once said, "It is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them." Their judgment was flawed. They failed to see your worth when you were there. They dismissed your loyalty, ignored your efforts, and misjudged your silence as weakness. Now, their new judgment brings them pain, and it is not yours to fix. It is their teacher. Their regret becomes the lesson they cannot avoid. I know what you're thinking, my friends. You wonder, but what if they never learn? What if they just forget me? What if the regret fades and they move on? Let me tell you the truth. Lessons like this don't fade. Regret doesn't vanish. It lingers. They may distract themselves, bury it under noise, hide it behind pride. But every time the silence grows, the mirror returns. They look into it, and what they see is themselves, their selfishness, their blindness, their failure to hold on. And that reflection is more brutal than anything you could have ever said to them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And here, the revenge is not your anger, not your bitterness, not your desire to make them see. The revenge is simple, living free while they live trapped in their own regret. You rise, you grow, you keep moving forward, and in contrast, they remain chained to their guilt. The mirror doesn't face you, it faces them. They are the ones haunted by the image of what they lost. So the next time you wonder if they've forgotten, remember this. Forgetting is easy when nothing mattered, but regret is born only from what was real. They can only regret what carried true value, and you were that value. You were the rare diamond tossed aside only to shine brighter once you were gone. Their regret proves your worth in ways their words never could. So take this truth into your chest and breathe it deep, my friends. Say it with me right now. Their regret is not my weight. Write those words in the comments. Don't just think them, declare them. Because when you free yourself from carrying their burden, you step fully into your own strength. And if this stirred something in you, if it reminded you of your worth, press that like button so I know you felt it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and stay with me, because their regret may follow them forever, but your freedom, your peace, your power is just beginning. Number 5. The return of curiosity. At first, my friends, they laughed when you pulled away. They told themselves a story to soothe their ego. See, I knew they'd leave. I knew they couldn't handle me. I won. They bragged to others, put on a mask of pride, and acted as though your absence meant nothing. But that laughter never lasts. Pride has a short shelf life, and the truth always returns when the noise fades. Because when the stage goes quiet and the world stops clapping, curiosity creeps in. And curiosity, once it enters, never leaves quietly. Picture the scene. It's late at night, the room is dark, and their phone screen lights up their face. Their thumb scrolls almost by muscle memory. They type your name into the search bar. They click your profile. They scroll down slower than they mean to, watching every picture, every word, every new piece of your life. They don't press like, they don't comment, they don't dare leave a trace, but they're there. They're watching, they're checking mutual friends, scanning stories, replaying memories through the lens of your new growth. They want to know if you've changed, if you're happier, if you've replaced them. They tell themselves it's just curiosity, just boredom. But you and I know the truth. People only investigate what they secretly long for. Why do they do this? Psychology has an answer. The human brain hates gaps in information. When someone who was once familiar suddenly becomes silent, it creates a gap, an unfinished puzzle. That's the Zeigarnik effect in action again. The mind loops around incomplete stories until it finds resolution. And your silence, your absence, is the biggest unfinished story of their life. That's why they keep checking. They need answers. Where are you now? Are you moving on? Do you even think of them anymore? The more questions they have, the more restless they become. And restlessness breeds obsession. Think of it like this. Imagine you're walking past a closed door in a hallway you used to enter freely. One day, you reach for the handle, but it's locked. At first, you shrug and walk away. But later, you pass it again, and something nags at you. What's behind that door now? Has it changed? Is someone else inside? That locked door suddenly consumes more of your thoughts than it ever did when it was open. That's exactly what happens when you shut the door of your attention. They didn't value it when it was open, but the moment you closed it, their curiosity grew into hunger. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists, and the more they resist admitting they miss you, the more their actions betray them. They scroll in silence, they ask mutual friends subtle questions, they stalk in ways they'd never confess. They try to suppress it, but the persistence of curiosity proves what pride won't allow them to say. They still think of you, they still miss you, they still can't let go." And here's the irony, folks. They once laughed at your silence, but now it's your silence that makes them restless. They once ignored your presence, but now they crave even the smallest trace of your life. They once thought you'd never move without them, but now they can't stop watching to see where you've gone. Their curiosity is not casual, it's the symptom of regret growing deeper every day. But here's where your power lies. You don't need to feed their curiosity. You don't need to post to prove a point or drop hints to get their attention. Your very absence fuels their questions. Your silence feeds their obsession. Their need to know becomes the evidence of your worth. And while they're trapped in curiosity, you're free, living, growing, shining beyond their reach. So let this truth steady you. The ones who claim they don't care are often the ones who check the most. The ones who act indifferent are often the ones who stalk in silence. Their actions reveal the truth, their words deny. And that truth is simple. They are not over you. They never will be. Take a deep breath with me, my friends, and let's seal this lesson together. Say it out loud. They check, I rise. Write those words in the comments right now. Don't just think them, declare them, because each time you affirm it, you claim your power back. And if this truth hit your chest, if it reminded you of your worth, press that like button so I know you felt it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and stay with me, because this story is far from over. Their curiosity is only the beginning of their downfall, and your silence is the force pulling them back to the place they thought they could leave behind. Number 6. The shift of power. They thought they held all the cards, my friends. They thought as long as you were chasing, as long as you were explaining, as long as you were begging for their attention, the power would always sit in their hands. To them, your devotion wasn't love. It was fuel. Every unanswered message made them feel taller. Every time you circled back, they grew more certain that they could never lose you. But then something shifted. One day, you stopped chasing. One day the messages stopped coming. One day the calls went silent. And in that moment, without fireworks or confrontation, the balance of power changed forever. Picture it clearly. For so long, they saw themselves as the puppeteer. Every string tied to your emotions. Every pull meant you danced for them. Your happiness, your pain, your peace, all dictated by whether they gave you scraps of attention. But then the strings went slack. The puppet didn't collapse, it walked away, and the puppeteer, so used to pulling and controlling, was left staring at lifeless rope in their hands. That's what your silence does. That's what your refusal to chase creates. Suddenly, they are powerless. Suddenly, they realize the control they thought they had was never real. It only existed because you allowed it. This is the shift, folks, and it's one of the most beautiful truths you'll ever embrace. Power has never been about forcing someone else to bend. It has never been about pulling strings or playing games. Real power, Stoic power, is mastery over yourself. Epictetus taught, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And that's exactly what you are becoming. You've stopped handing them the keys to your peace. You've stopped letting their silence dictate your worth. You've stopped confusing your chasing with love. And the moment you reclaimed control over yourself, you became untouchable. But I know what you're thinking. You're asking, if I stop chasing, won't they forget me? Won't they think I don't care? Doesn't walking away mean I've lost them for good? That's the fear talking, the same fear that kept you tied to their strings. The truth is the opposite. When you stop reacting, when you stop giving them control, it forces them to see the reality they've been running from. They were never in charge of you. They were never the source of your worth. And now that you've cut the strings, their illusion collapses. They're left scrambling, searching, wondering why the puppet no longer moves at their command. Think of it like a chess game. They've been playing confidently, moving their pieces with arrogance, convinced they're always 10 steps ahead. But then, without warning, you stand up and walk away from the board. The game ends, not because they won, but because you refuse to play. And what's left? They sit there, staring at a half-finished game, powerless, knowing their control only lasted as long as you participated. That's the essence of this shift. Your refusal to play their game is the ultimate victory. Carl Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." And that's exactly what you've proven. You are no longer defined by their rejection, their betrayal, or their silence. You've chosen to become something beyond their reach, calm, steady, in control of yourself. That choice shakes them more than any words you could ever send. And here's the irony, my friends. The more you chase someone, the less they value you. The moment you stop chasing, the more they panic, because the ego thrives on control, and your silence starves it. That's why their mind will now circle back to you again and again, not because you begged for it, but because you refused to. So let's ground this truth deep inside you. The power was never theirs. It was always yours. And today, by walking away, by cutting the strings, by mastering yourself, you proved it. Say it with me right now. I hold the power. Write those 4 words in the comments. Don't just think them, declare them. Because once you claim it, no one can take it from you. And if this hit your chest, if it reminded you of your strength, press that like button so I know you felt it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and stay with me, because this isn't just about silence, it's about sovereignty. And my friends, you've already stepped into it. Number 7, the inevitable circle back. It always happens, my friends, the circle back. At first, they were so sure of themselves. They thought walking away from you was a victory, that ignoring you meant they held the power. They laughed at your silence in the beginning, convinced it meant you had finally given up, that you had nothing left to offer. But what they didn't understand is that silence doesn't vanish. It expands. It grows heavier the longer it lingers, until it begins to suffocate the very ego that once felt so untouchable. And that's when it happens, the inevitable circle back. Picture it. You haven't texted in weeks, maybe months. You haven't asked, you haven't begged, you haven't played the part they expected. And then, out of nowhere, a notification lights up your phone. Hey, just one word. Casual, as if nothing ever happened. Or maybe it's a random like on an old picture, a breadcrumb they drop to test the waters. They'll disguise it as harmless, as casual, but you and I both know what it really is. It's not a coincidence. It's not boredom. It's hunger. It's ego starving, trying to see if it can still feed on your attention. Psychology tells us people crave what they cannot control. The human ego thrives when it feels certain, when it knows the outcome, when it can predict your next move. But unpredictability, that's unbearable. And your silence is the greatest unpredictability of all. They don't know what you're thinking, what you're doing, or who you're with. They can't track your emotions anymore, can't rely on your energy to soothe their pride. And that uncertainty becomes magnetic. The mind is pulled toward mystery, toward the one thing it cannot figure out. That's why they circle back. Not because you chased, but because you stopped. Think of it like fire, my friends. At first, your chasing was oxygen to their flame. Every message, every call, every attempt kept their ego burning bright. But then you stopped. You cut off the air. And what happens when a flame runs out of oxygen? It doesn't roar louder. It flickers, it weakens, it collapses. That's their ego without your attention. And once it's weak enough, once the silence has starved it, they crawl back, reaching for the very source they once dismissed. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists." They resisted valuing you when they had you, resisted admitting your worth, resisted giving you the love you deserved. But your silence persisted. It pressed against their pride until cracks formed. And those cracks are what bring them back. They start to wonder, what if I was wrong? What if they've moved on? What if someone else sees what I didn't? Those questions become unbearable. And so, pride swallowed, they test the waters just to see if you're still there. But here's the part you need to remember, my friends. Their return is not your validation. It's not proof of your worth. Your worth was always there, unshaken, whether they acknowledged it or not. Their return is simply the consequence of your silence. It's the law of human nature at work. People crave what they cannot control, and the moment you stopped being predictable, you became irresistible. So the next time they send that casual, "Hey," the next time they like your picture out of nowhere, remember the truth. They didn't come back because you begged. They didn't come back because you proved yourself. They came back because your silence starved their ego. They circled back because the absence of your presence was louder than anything you could have said. Take a deep breath with me right now and claim this truth. Say it with me. They return, I remain. Write those 4 words in the comments right now. Don't just think them, declare them, because the moment you write it, you anchor it into reality. And if this message lit something inside you, if it reminded you that you hold the power, press that like button so I know you felt it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and stay with me. Because their circle back may be inevitable, but your strength, your calm, your mastery is eternal. Number 8. The Stoic victory you already won. They always thought the game would end with them holding the last word, my friends. They imagined you stuck at the door they slammed shut, waiting, hoping, praying for them to return. In their mind, you were the one who needed closure, the one who needed answers, the one who would never stop chasing. But here's the twist. The ending they counted on will never come. Because by the time they circle back, something extraordinary has happened. You've already risen. You've already outgrown them. You've already won. Picture it clearly. They come back with that half-hearted "hey" or that sudden like on your post, thinking they still hold the strings. But the strings aren't there anymore. You're no longer their puppet, no longer a doormat to be stepped on whenever their ego needs polishing. You've cut the ropes, you've walked off the stage, and while they've been busy replaying the old game in their head, you've been busy building something they can't even comprehend: yourself. That's the Stoic victory, not in seeing them crawl back, not in hearing their apologies, but in realizing you no longer need them. Let's pause and really break this down. For so long, they made you believe your happiness was in their hands. Their reply or silence could ruin your whole day. Their presence or absence defined how you saw yourself. That was the illusion. That was the trap. But Stoicism teaches us again and again. Happiness is not found in the hands of others. It is built in the mastery of your own mind. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That is the truth you've now stepped into. They didn't hand you peace. You created it. They didn't give you worth. You discovered it was already inside you. And here's the beauty of it. By the time they return, it doesn't even matter anymore. Not because you're bitter, not because you're trying to prove a point, but because you've grown beyond needing their validation. What once felt like the center of your world now feels like a small dot in your rearview mirror. You don't hate them, you don't need them, you've simply outgrown them. And nothing shakes a person more than realizing the one they thought was dependent has become untouchable. Think of it like a tree, folks. In the early days, storms could shake it, bend it, nearly break it. That's you in the past, easily moved by every gust of their silence, every wave of their rejection. But over time, the roots grew deeper, stronger, invisible to the eye, yet unshakable beneath the surface. And now, when they come back, their storm has no effect. You stand firm, tall, grounded. Their return doesn't uproot you. It barely rustles your leaves. That's the power you've built in the silence. But I know what you might be thinking. If they come back, doesn't that mean they finally see my worth? Isn't that what I wanted all along? And I'll tell you, no, my friends, that was the old desire, the old illusion. Because the truth is this: their return is not proof of your worth. Your worth was never missing. Their return is proof of their regret, proof of their blindness, proof that they starved their own ego until they had no choice but to come back. But you no longer need the proof. You no longer need the apology. You already have what matters, the unshakable truth of yourself. Carl Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And what you've become in this silence is someone freer, calmer, stronger. You chose not to stay broken. You chose not to let their rejection define you. You chose to rise. That's the victory. Not that they miss you, not that they regret you, but that you are no longer chained to the outcome. They could return or they could vanish forever, and either way, you are whole. Now let's take it even deeper. Imagine standing on a mountain peak. Behind you are all the valleys you crossed, the heartbreak, the sleepless nights, the endless questions of why wasn't I enough? Ahead of you is open sky, vast and endless, full of new paths, new light, new strength. And down below, at the base of the mountain, that's where they still wander, confused, searching, trying to circle back to a place you no longer live. They thought they left you in ruins, but when they finally look up, they see you on the peak, untouchable, radiant, out of reach. That image burns them more than any silence ever could. This is why I call it the Stoic victory, because it's not about beating them, it's about mastering yourself. It's not about punishing them, it's about releasing yourself. Stoicism is about control over your own mind, not control over theirs. And the moment you realize that, you see that the game was over the moment you stopped playing. You already won the day you chose peace over panic, calm over chaos, wisdom over weakness. So when they return, as they inevitably do, don't see it as validation. See it as confirmation. Confirmation that your silence worked, that your strength echoed, that your absence was louder than your presence ever was. But most importantly, see it as proof that you no longer need them. Because the greatest victory is not in having them crawl back. It's in realizing you no longer want what once broke you. Take a deep breath with me right now, my friends. Feel it in your chest. Let it sink in. You already won. The story isn't about them anymore. It's about you, your rise, your strength, your peace. And the more you own that truth, the less anything they do can touch you. So let's seal this together in the way we always do. Say it with me right now. They return, but I rise higher. Write those words in the comments, not just as a phrase, but as a declaration of your new self. Because when you affirm it, you anchor it. You prove it not only to me, not only to them, but to yourself. And so, my friends, here's the truth we've uncovered together. Your silence was never weakness, it was victory. They may return, they may circle back, but by then you've already risen higher, you've already mastered yourself, and that is a win no one can take away. So let's seal it together one last time. Write it in the comments. I rise higher. Claim it, own it, live it. And if this message stirred something in your heart, smash that like button, share this with someone who needs the reminder, and subscribe if you haven't already. Stay with me. Your rise has only begun.